evening, and welcome to another episode of Late Night with Lenette. I'm Lenette Peterson, your host. Our illustrious governor should hang her head in shame. Hassan's heroes on the school board of education, the school board of education, oh my word, the board of education, struck a blow for mediocrity last week. They denied the application for a K through 4 charter school focusing on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We'll call it STEM for short. 2 of the 3 votes against came from Hassan appointees Bill Duncan and Emma Rouse. The other came from Helen Honoro, which was a Lynch, governor of Lynch, one of his last appointees. The Democrats' love of choice turns sour when it comes to public education and the best interests of children. I mean, they say they're the party for the children. Really? This is a slam to parents who can't afford anything but public education. The STEM, again, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, that's where you're going to get the high-tech jobs. That's where you're going to get your industry. And when you're killing a charter school with that, you're already knocking these kids down a notch or two. A liberal arts degree is not going to get you anywhere. That's why we have so many unemployed people now. All these universities going to liberal arts degrees. Tell me, what are you going to do with an international studies degree? Really? Say no to Maggie Hassan. Say no. Vote no for Maggie Hassan for U.S. Senate. Vote for Kelly Ayotte. Kelly Ayotte stands for the people. My guest this evening is Patrick Shaheen, no relation to Jeannie, that's for sure. He's a good Republican. He's with Americans for Prosperity. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm a big fan of your director, Greg Moores. Greg is always ready to go that extra mile to keep New Hampshire citizens informed, and I'm sure you're the same. If you're in a position with Americans Prosperity, I'm sure Greg is the one that appointed you there.
Absolutely. He's a hard worker.
Yeah, so you must be as well, or you wouldn't be in your position. Mm-hmm. Well, very good. So tell me, what does Americans for Prosperity actually do?
Well, here in New Hampshire, Americans for Prosperity acts as a tool for activists in New Hampshire communities, and we have a few priorities that we take positions on. Like, we're for lower taxes, we're for lower spending, because if you don't have the money, you can't spend it. We are for upholding the New Hampshire as well as the federal Constitution, and we believe in right to work because everyone deserves the chance to work hard in this country.
Exactly. Now, do they just get involved with, say, with federal elections, or do they get involved with state and local as well?
We have been involved in federal policy issues, but we actually get involved with very local issues as well. Mm-hmm. In the end of last year, Derry, New Hampshire, which has some of the highest property taxes in the entire state, voted to their local government voted to increase those property taxes, and we were on the ground knocking on doors and letting people know that they were doing this without a lot of their constituents' knowledge. So we're there on those hyper-local fights. We're there at the federal level, saying that New Hampshire is one of the best states in terms of balancing its budget, in terms of low taxes, low spending, low regulations, and we're here to help keep it that way.
Very good. Now, how did you get involved with this group?
I actually I ran a Young Americans for Liberty chapter at my high school, Nashua High School South, and from that point, I met a lot of people in the Liberty community, the Republican community, and found out that New Hampshire has a long tradition of small government, and that's something that really resonated with me. So when I found out that Americans for Prosperity was hiring, I didn't hesitate to apply, and I aligned with them on in terms of company culture as well as their issue array, and I worked for them as a field associate for about a year, and then I was promoted to field director.
Oh, very good. Now, what office are you in?
We have 3 offices. We have one in Manchester, New Hampshire. We recently opened another in Dover, New Hampshire, and I work out of Nashua, New Hampshire at 60 Main Street. We opened a new office last month.
Very good. I was just going to say, that's a new office.
Yes.
Yeah, I was supposed to go to the open house, and something else came up, and I couldn't get to it.
We have tons of events.
Yeah, I heard it was an awesome event. Now, One of the events that I've always wanted to go on. I've had several friends that have gone on these events. You have bus trips.
Yes.
I know you had one to New York. You've had a couple to New York. What can you tell us about the bus trips?
Well, one of my first bus trips with Americans for Prosperity was to New York for a Concerned Veterans for America concert. So we got a chance to see country singers like Ayla Brown and groups like that. But one of the most fun parts, even though it was through the night, is the bus trips, because not only are you with people who care about the issues, they're usually very well informed and they like to debate policy.
There you go.
So if you're on a bus trip for 9 hours with someone who really believes in something, you're going to hear about it.
Oh, yeah.
And my first bus trip had Representative Al Baldessaro
Say
sitting
no
next
more.
to me. So we had quite a few animated conversations.
I bet. Yeah, I know. I know he's gone on at least one, maybe even more than one trip.
Yeah, he's
Yep.
very involved with our issues.
Yeah, Gary Gahan, he lives here in Merrimack.
Yes.
He's gone on, I think, at least one, if not more.
Yeah, I think he might have come with us to Ohio. We have a Defending the American Dream Summit every summer. This year it's going to be in Florida.
Oh, there you
go. It's quite a long bus trip to Ohio.
Yeah, that's going to be, well, Florida's going to be an even longer bus
Yeah,
trip.
we'll see. It might be a multi-day affair at that point.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, I can't imagine being on a bus. Now, your organization functions most with volunteers, I take it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, what types of activities do the volunteers, can they expect to, what tasks do they expect to get involved in?
Well, right now we're reaching out and letting folks know about their legislators who voted in favor of Obamacare. We are right now focusing on Senate Districts 16 and 18, particularly with Donna Soucy, who voted in favor of Obamacare expansion, which, as I'm sure you well know, in the long run is not good for New Hampshire's budget. And what we do is we make phone calls to constituents who might not know about these issues, and we tell them, this is what your legislator did, this is how much it's going to cost, and if you want to reach out and let them know, we can help connect you. So we knock on doors and we make phone calls, but beyond that, we also have events where we're just commemorating New Hampshire history. For example, we have an event April 13th at the Ware Town Hall commemorating the Pine Tree Riot, which was one of the earliest acts of rebellion against the English tax system back in 1772. So we think it's important to remember that these are not new issues. Taxes are not new, but government expansion is not new. And so we stood up against that then, and we'll stand up against it now.
Very good. Yeah, the Obamacare expansion, known as Medicaid expansion, passed the New Hampshire House. The deciding vote coming from the Speaker, no less. That was that was a shame.
Yeah.
Too many Republicans jumped ship to vote against, to vote for the Obamacare expansion.
Right.
And that's just heading New Hampshire down the wrong way. I mean, that could easily lead to a state income tax.
Yeah, income tax, sales tax, which New Hampshire has never had.
Exactly.
We have a New Hampshire advantage where we have no sales, no income tax. If a business wants to come here, and if you're going to a store, the price you see is the price you pay.
Exactly. And a state income tax, I mean, that puts us above New Hampshire. If our governor would get her act together and we could make it more business friendly, we'd see more employees staying here in New Hampshire instead of going south of the border. It's just painful.
Yes, AFP got involved last year trying to decrease business taxes in the state, and there was a minor business tax decrease, but we still have some of the highest business taxes in the country. So there's a long way to go on that issue, and it's important that we don't just create these liabilities where down the line we're going to need new taxes and to raise taxes which are already too high.
Exactly. And I saw this thing on the internet. It had the top 10 states listed to be in for a job, the 10 worst states to be in. Every New England state was in the top 10 worst somewhere. I think Vermont was the number one worst. Yay, Vermont. And right now, the number one state to be in job-wise is Texas. Texas is very user-friendly for corporations to move in. It turns out the Austin area is turning into a second Silicon Valley.
Oh.
Companies are finally leaving California due to the expense, and they're moving to Texas.
Yeah, so we just have to make it make sense for those companies that want to move to Texas to move to New Hampshire.
Exactly. Well, BAE Systems is sending a division from Nashua to Austin, Texas. So if BAE is taking a group and moving them out, that should be a red flag.
Absolutely.
Start thinking of the businesses and the corporations. But no, that doesn't always happen. Now, back to the volunteers.
Sure.
How many volunteers does each office hope to have? Like you're at the Nashua branch. How many volunteers do you need to really run like a well-oiled wheel?
Right. Well, my coworker Sarah has a full field team. She's working out of Manchester. She lives in Bedford, and some of the high school students she knows at Bedford High use their democracy hours to volunteer.
Oh, very good.
And she had 25 volunteers last week alone.
Nice.
So we are trying to build a grassroots network at the starting from the bottom up, getting people involved, getting people the information they need to be informed. So we're trying to build teams of 50 volunteers in each area. So in Dover, New Hampshire, we're actually getting involved at the city level. The local town council is trying to raise the tax cap, and where I don't know a lot about that issue because it's something we decided to get involved in today. We are listening to our activists and our volunteers, and we want to help them as much as a lot of them want to help us. So we care a lot about their lives and making sure that they're informed and have the tools to get involved to make a difference.
Very good. So the Nashua office could probably use. You probably have a few volunteers already.
Yes.
So, but 25 is a good number.
Absolutely.
Yep. And now we got some state rep. This year is the re-election for state reps. I'm sure you folks will be involved in several state rep.
We focus on the policy, not necessarily on the politicians. So
Right.
We have a lot of state reps who have signed our New Hampshire pledge not to raise taxes and a few other issues. But we don't get involved in those local races. What we do is we pay attention to how the legislature votes, and we give state reps grades based on how economically free their voting record is. So we hold them accountable and say, "Oh, you can talk about lowering taxes, but you voted for Medicaid."
Exactly.
So we're not going to let people forget that they are responsible to their voters. And
Right. I've seen some of the past flyers that
Yes.
have come out just around primary time, it seems. That's when the mailbox is usually flooded with Americans for Prosperity flyers. Now, in the local, and you said you're getting involved with Dover, when they have the town meeting day, back in March, Merrimack doesn't take part in town meeting. Our town elections are in April. But do they focus on anything at the different town meetings?
Well, we are for lower taxes and lower spending across the board. So we think that a tax on the local level is just as poor a decision as it is at the federal level. So if we hear that a particular town wants to dramatically increase property taxes, put in new fees, new regulations that are going to cost the average New Hampshire citizen down the line, but money that they use to pay for their families. We are interested in that, and we get involved when our activists tell us we need help. So.
Oh, very good. Very good. Now, how about with presidential elections? Did you guys have any, a hand in any of with the New Hampshire primary? Were you targeting any issues or?
We wanted to drive the conversation, so we wanted to not pick one candidate over another, but we wanted to pin them down to get them to actually take stands on the issues. So we had a Reform America series with Governor Bush, Carly Fiorina, Marco Rubio, where we ask tough questions and we nail down their position on an issue. So there are a lot of candidates that had different levels of different positions in economics, so we didn't choose one over the other, but we wanted to get their clear positions and drive them in a more freedom-oriented direction.
Gotcha. Now, what are some of those issues? Do you remember what any of the issues were?
Sure. Well, one of the big issues is just the level of regulation and the energy industry and how they view the federal government's role, because there's a very different worldview from someone who thinks, how is the government going to fix this problem, whereas how can the government not create problems? I mean,
Right.
they're radically different worldviews. So when we had candidates like Marco Rubio who pointed out that Uber is the biggest taxi driver, Amazon is the biggest department store, we're living in a world where it defies the old ways of thinking about regulations. So it's good to have these conversations with the candidates and try to drive them in a more constitutional, limited government direction, more freedom-oriented direction, more free market-oriented direction.
Very good. Yes. Definitely more attention needs to be put on the taxes and the fees that come out of Concord.
Yeah.
Like we said a little while ago, it's killing businesses. Companies are not coming here. They're going to Massachusetts, which I don't understand. Yeah, it blows the mind with taxes, but they are. Or they're going to Texas. They're going to southern states. New England's one of the it is the most expensive area for energy. Costs a lot to heat these places. And when you have your corporate taxes up here, your energy costs up here, who can afford it?
Right, and it makes it difficult for small businesses to compete with the large corporations who can afford to pack up and move to a different area. A small business can't afford to cut its staff, can't afford new taxes, new regulations in a way that big business can, drive the smaller ones out of business by increasing those regulations.
Exactly. Now, you got involved with all this in high school. Yeah. Now, what got you interested back in high school? I mean, most high school kids, they don't think of politics. They don't think of political issues or taxes. What are taxes?
Well, as we're both very aware, New Hampshire has the first in the nation status for its primary season.
Yep.
And back when I was a student at Nashua High, I was in student government and had a chance to meet a few of the different candidates. I met John McCain, Ron Paul. I'm sorry to say Barack Obama gave his "Yes We Can" speech at my school. So just getting a chance to meet those people and to hear about their positions and their beliefs about how their philosophy helps Americans in general drove me in the direction of thinking, how can I get involved? What are the correct positions? What does it mean to follow the Constitution? And just by doing that, I learned that New Hampshire has a long history of small government, of being accountable to the people. And I helped out in state rep elections at the local level. David Maritaki, Greg Serby, a few different ones. And I just felt it was really important that the guys who are fighting for the little guy and for the Constitution, that people take a stand for those things.
Well, there you go. Very good. Yeah, and most young people, unfortunately, start out in the other party.
A lot of my friends voted for Sanders.
Yeah, because especially with him, free sounds good.
Absolutely.
The free college, yes. Yeah, $15 minimum wage, yes. Where's the money going to come from?
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that free means everybody pays for it, or at least the people who are earning money pay for it. And you can only put so much on the backs of the people who are working before the whole thing, like a camel's back, collapses, and there's just too much put upon the working class in this country.
Exactly. There's no such thing as the free lunch.
Absolutely.
And a free college education, it just blows the mind.
Would make college worthless, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I had the pleasure of going out to lunch with a friend of mine, and there was a young man listening to our conversation. And this was before the New Hampshire primary. And we asked him if he was a registered voter, and he said yes, and he was college age, and we kind of figured what party he was for, and he said that he was a registered Democrat, and asked him, well, who do you like? Bernie Sanders, of course. And we asked him why. I want the $15 minimum wage and free college education. Well, then we kind of schooled him on what it meant to have a free college education. Yeah. Who's going to pay? Who's going to pay the professors? It's not free. It was an eye opener to him, and we told him, before you decide to vote, learn the facts. I'm sure he didn't. I'm sure he probably didn't change parties. He probably didn't change his candidate.
Sure, but I mean, a lot of times people have contradictory positions where they think teachers don't make enough, but school should be free. Well, one of those has to give.
Exactly.
So if you're asking taxpayers to finance your entire education, then at what point does the taxpayer say, okay, your international studies, your degree in communications isn't good enough, study engineering? So
exactly.
I don't think people want society as a whole making those decisions, so society as a whole shouldn't be paying for it.
Oh yeah, you look at Canada with their free health care. That free health care isn't free. They're taxed almost 50%. They have their Providence tax. They have their government tax. The free health care is not free.
Sure.
Someone has to pay for it. And my husband and I lived in Canada for 2 years. Most Canadians that we knew, if they had to have an operation or they had something that was serious that needed to be looked into, they took out a loan and went to the States. I mean,
Yeah, you don't want to wait in line when your health is on the line.
exactly. Doctors up there have quotas. They can only see so many patients in a year. When they reach their quota, they're done. You can't see your doctor until the next year when his quota starts over.
Wow.
I mean, great healthcare system. I blew my knee out up there, and the orthopedic surgeon told me to join the gym. Oh, join the YMCA is what he told me. That was not going to fix my knee.
Exactly.
But yeah, you get what you pay for. You're paying for nothing, you're going to get nothing. So that's pretty cool. Starting out at high school, knowing already it needs to be constitutional.
Any law, not just taxes, not just regulations. If the government's going to do it, you have to ask, is it constitutional first?
Exactly. When I was up at the State House as a state rep, I always asked people if they had a copy of the Constitution. And I gave out copies of the New Hampshire Constitution. I would tell them to, go to the Secretary of State's office, get copies of the Constitution, get copies of the federal, because if it passes the state, you got to make sure it passes the federal. And I even took it one step further. I asked them if they had the Lord's Constitution. It has to be biblical. I would give out New Testaments. You don't want to pass something that's not biblical. I'm definitely pro-life, and you want to make sure that what you're passing is not going to kill babies. What you're passing is not going to be against what you have in the Bible.
Yeah, it's good to have moral principles as well as economic or any other.
Exactly. Now, have you ever been interested in running for state office? Do you think in the future you might be interested in running for state office?
I've been asked a couple times, particularly with the last name, if I would run as a Democrat. But at this point, I'm happy being a full-time field director with AFP.
There you go. Now, that last name must get you in trouble sometimes.
Sometimes it gets you in trouble. The building that we actually opened our national office in has a neighbor of Gene Shaheen's office. So sometimes it's a little bit confusing having the name Gene Shaheen at the top and the AFP office in the bottom. But it works. Most people can tell that I'm not related after a few short conversations.
Yeah, exactly. Now, has it ever worked to your benefit having the same last name as the governor?
Sure. If you tell a Democrat that your last name's Shaheen, all of a sudden they back off a little bit. So, but most Republicans aren't intimidated. So.
Yeah, no. But boy, you could have some fun with Democrats, letting them know that, hey, my name's Patrick Shaheen, and I'm with Americans for Prosperity.
Yeah, I might get a few funny looks at that point.
Yeah, I can't imagine her wanting anything to do with Americans for Prosperity.
Yeah, I think she'd be happy to not be on our radar.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you were talking about your event coming up the 13th, and where? Do you have any other activities coming up that you know of?
Yes, we hold phone banks at our national office every Thursday at 5 p.m. That's 60 Main Street, room 103. And we are holding a phone bank for that local issue in Dover. And we tend to hold phone banks every Thursday, occasionally on Tuesday, and we knock on doors throughout the week.
Yep.
But we have a big day of action where all the different state chapters compete to have good numbers and show that we're our strength on a national level. And we have the Defending the American Dream Summit in Orlando this summer.
Now, tell us about the Orlando Summit.
It's a big event. Last year we had Marco Rubio, Bobby Jindal, Ted Cruz. They all spoke about economic issues, specifically about Obamacare, about their role in government, how they see government, and their positions on economics. So I'm sure we'll have some big name speakers like that as well. We also have a program starting in July with the Americans for Prosperity Foundation, AFP's sister organization, called Grassroots Leadership Academy, which is a 6-week course for a certificate. It's similar to Leadership Institute in a lot of ways, where it teaches you networking skills, how to message, and how to convince a new person who might not be far to the left, far to the right, they're sort of in the middle. How do you address your message in a way they can understand? And we have speakers fly in from across the country, like Nita Moncrief, who is the Acorn whistleblower, who tell us this is how the left operates, and they're very effective. They work as a collective, and they don't ask questions. They say, okay, if you give me my bit of spending, I'm okay with your bit of spending, and we'll all be in this together. So you have the abortion folks and Planned Parenthood working with Greenpeace and the patchwork organizations on the left. So we teach people at the lowest grassroots level about how important it is that they get involved, and we ask for them to sit with us for 6 weeks, and we'll tell them our perspective, and hope that they'll want to volunteer at the end of it.
Now, is there a cost for this?
No, it's totally free. So,
And how do they get information on that?
well, they can email me at pshaheen, Shaheen, at afphq.org, or they can visit our Facebook page, Americans for Prosperity Volunteer Center, and we'll be posting links in the upcoming months.
Okay. Now, do you folks have a website as well?
Yes, AmericansForProsperity.org lies at more of our national issues, but we're very involved on Facebook and Eventbrite. If you look up our events, you can usually find tickets and information on them. And our Grassroots Leadership Academy will actually be doing a course on Tuesday in Nashua, a course on Wednesday in Dover, and a course on Thursday in Manchester. So wherever you are in the state, we make it as easy as we can to get involved.
Oh, very good. Yeah, the Acorn whistleblower, I've heard her speak before. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, she's a very compelling woman.
Yes. Yeah, that was a very, very interesting talk.
And just to hear some of the things that happen on the other side, where a lot of times they're just interested in getting a payout, where at one point they had a program where they were supposedly looking for lead paint, and then Sherwin-Williams offered to step in and say, we'll do it for free, and they said, no, that's not what we're looking for. We want them to pay a fine instead. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, so those folks, if you're interested, wanting to get involved, check out their Facebook page, get the information, get informed, get educated, and the more educated, the more informed you are, the better you can fight against the opposition. Get these New Hampshire taxes down, get these New Hampshire fees down, and get good Republicans in office. We're at the end of our show.
Oh, thank you.
That's quick. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I thank you for tuning in to Late Night with Lenette. Check out that website. Good night, and God bless.